Welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to dive into foundational core of SQL Server, the 4 critical system databases. We have master, model, msdb, and tempdb. These databases are backbone of your SQL Server instance, and without them your SQL Server environment wouldn't work at all. Let's start explaining by master database. The master database stores all system-level information for SQL Server instance. It is responsible for login credentials, linked server configurations, database file locations, endpoints, system configuration settings, and server-wide metadata. If SQL Server were a human, master would be its brain. So let's create some kind of example and let's create new database. And let's call it Brainwheel. Brainwheel is my YouTube channel name, and if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe. And after creating this database, as we said, master stores information about system level, not system level, server-wide metadata. So if I select now from my master database, from this table, it will show me information about my databases. As you can see, I'm using master database and selecting from this table. First 4 always will be your system databases. During the installation, these system databases will show up automatically, and their IDs will be from 1 to 4, and other than this will be your user-defined databases. As you can see, I have 3 databases: Joint Test, AdventureWorks, and newly created Brainwheel database with their IDs and all the other information. So master saves all these informations. So master database is very critical for your SQL Server, and if master becomes corrupted or deleted, SQL Server might not start. You will need to restore it from a backup using single user mode. So backupping your master after any major change, such as creating new databases or modifying logins, is very important, and you should always consider in your backup strategy to backup your system databases. Not only master, also model and msdb, but backupping tempdb is not very important, and I will explain it why it is not important. Let's move on to the msdb database. And msdb, the system database that supports SQL Server Agent jobs, alerts and scheduled tasks, database mail configurations, backup and restore history, log shipping, SSIS packages, and more. So this msdb database is also very important, as is master database. So let's use our msdb database, but at first let's create some kind of job. As you can see, I do not have any jobs other than this. Let's create new job. Let's call it again Brainwheel. Click on OK. We do not need any steps on schedules. I hope you know how to create these jobs. Click on OK. And now, as we said, this information is stored in msdb. Previously, you saw that this database information was stored in master database. Now let's select from our msdb database. Let's use msdb. And let's select star from dbo.sysjobs and click on execute. And as you can see, I have information about my jobs. This first one which I had, and this newly created Brainwheel job. So msdb saves this kind of information. If msdb is damaged, the SQL Server Agent jobs won't run, backup history disappears, and alerts will fail. So backupping msdb regularly, especially after job or mail setup, is very important. Let's move on to the third system database called tempdb. Tempdb is temporary workspace for SQL Server operations. It is recreated every time the SQL Server restarts and used for example, temporary tables and variables, sorting and hashing, cursor and table variables, version store, and internal operations, for example, spill data from memory to disk. So as I mentioned previously, backupping this tempdb is not very important, because if something happens, you can restart your SQL Server and all the temporary files will be created. So to test that theory, go on and stop your SQL server. Click on Stop from Server Configuration Manager. And my tempdb files are on my disk drive under MS SQL under tempdb. So this is my files. Let's wait for SQL Server to stop. So this is my files, and I can delete these tempdb files. Let's delete from here. And now if I start SQL Server, these files will show up automatically. So every time my SQL Server gets restarted, these temporary files will be recreated. So as you can see, these files show up without any problem. So corrupting or damaging these files is also very bad, but if that happens to you, you can always delete these files and restart your SQL Server. Now let's create some kind of temporary object. As we said, we can create temporary objects. We have let's create temporary table, and let's write create table. When you create a regular table, we do not use this sign, but when you're creating temporary table, always use this sign. Let's again use YouTube channel name, Brainwheel. And let's use just ID, which is int. Click on execute. This will be automatically created under here, under temporary tables, because I used this sign. Now let's insert something into my Brainwheel table. For example, 1. Let's select from it. It will act as a regular table. Nothing will be special. But as you can see, it acts as a regular table. I inserted some values and I selected from this table. But when I close my sessions, for example, this window, like session 73, if I close it and refresh my temporary tables, it will disappear. So temporary tables and temporary objects act like that. When the session ends, these temporary objects will disappear automatically. So you need to consider following things. If tempdb runs out of space, queries may fail and the system can slow down or hang. It's a common cause of performance bottlenecks. Many objects get created in tempdb and deleted after the use or after session ends. So if this tempdb runs out of space, your SQL Server may slow down. So place your tempdb on fast SSD, precise data log files, and avoid autogrowth issues, and use multiple data files to reduce contention or allocation pages. This is it for tempdb, and let's move on to the last one called model. Model acts as a template. Every time you create a new user database, SQL Server clones the structure of model. For example, when I created database Brainwheel, it actually cloned my model database. For example, under model database, I only have this Brainwheel table, and when I created this Brainwheel database, it automatically included this Brainwheel table. If model is corrupted, you can't create new database. That breaks automation and provisioning, so making sure to backup this model database is very important, as we said. Also, best practice is to avoid unnecessary objects in model, set default file size and recovery models carefully, and always backup model after changes. This is it for this video. Let's do a quick recap. So we discussed master database. Master controls server-wide metadata and configuration and startup. Also, we discussed msdb, which manages jobs, alerts, histories, and automation. We discussed tempdb, which handles temporary operations, resets on restart. And we discussed model database, which provides default settings for new databases. These aren't just like background components, they are essential to performance, reliability, and disaster recovery. And understanding these databases will help you to troubleshoot faster and configure your SQL Server instance like a pro database administrator. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks for watching, see you next time.